come down, lights will come up.
All right. Well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. Good evening. My name is Latasha Brown. I'm the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, and I thank you. I organize, strategize, and mobilize black voters to be self-determined. And I want to come today and welcome you to Vote for Justice. Be blessed.
Good evening. Welcome to Vote for Justice, an evening of empowerment with artists and activists. My name is Patrick Gaspard. I am the proud president of the Open Society Foundations, and I am extremely grateful to the Justice Roundtable for inspiring all of us into this convening. The way that sister was singing just now, I feel as if we've been called up into church, into service. We're gathered here as a beloved community at a critical juncture in the U.S. for all of us who care for rights and justice. These days, it feels as if all of us are confined in a prison of a madman's vile imaginings, a mass incarceration on steroids. Just think, we may be days away from the confirmation to the highest officers of the land to people who were involved in torture. The Attorney General of the United States dismantles the architecture of rights that we've constructed as a people over generations. And immigrants of color have been abused as pawns by cynical politicians trying to score cheap points with whipped-up mobs. Despite all this, we're all here gathered together tonight in a light of an earned optimism. Our history tells us that we've come together and we've come out on the other side of the darkest times. And we have fashioned a purposeful hope that manages to maintain the gaze of justice. So this is a gathering in the unblinking light of liberation, the light of peace, and the light of a radical patriotism. The liberation of current and future generations of brothers and sisters from a system that imprisons more people of color than South Africa did at the height of apartheid. Think about that. The peace that we will obtain only with the arrival of an uncompromised justice and a patriotism that we reclaim as standard bearers of a people who did not fight their way into the Constitution only to see their children languish in Rikers Island and Folsom Prison. We are here in testimony and in prescription. We're declaring in policy and in artistic expression that we need to and will continue the powerful movement for Black lives that were started on the streets of Ferguson. We affirm that we will uplift real models of community policing, ones that are led by the community and not by regressive law enforcement. We will hold forth the truth that we will advance transformational reforms that resist the criminalization of poverty. We will take up the charge to scour the country for people who should serve as prosecutors with the righteous understanding that our penal system is rooted in the toxicity of Reconstruction. You will hear tonight from members of Congress, top progressive prosecutors, artists, activists, and more. But most importantly, after tonight, we're all going to hear from you. We're going to hear from you in the streets. We're going to hear from you in media. We're going to hear from you in the halls of Congress. And we're going to hear from you at the ballot box. And as Brian Stevenson has so poignantly said to all of us, we have to be proximate to injustice, as we have been, regrettably, for over 400 years under the bondsman's lash. But as we are proximate to injustice, we have to imagine what justice actually looks like, which is why I'm really excited that we're joined by and led by artists. Dr. King used to always talk about the need in our dissatisfaction for a creative dissatisfaction, and in our dissent for a creative dissent. And that's what these artists embody and what they're going to give expression to. So let's get this thing started. And without further ado, let's bring on our charismatic, brilliant, and committed co-hosts for this evening, who in their own magnetic way will seize our imaginations. So we're going to bring up the brilliant, the hilariously funny, and righteous Tichina Arnold, and the inexhaustibly prolific brother Michael Eric Dyson. Thank you all.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, y'all got to do better than that. Good evening. Awesome. Let's give a round of applause to Patrick, please. Open Society's Foundation and Justice Roundtable for gathering us here tonight to discuss such an important topic at such a pivotal time in American history. Mm-hmm. That's right. Brother Doctor.
Amen.
Brother Doctor.
Amen.
Give it up for Dyson!
I don't know. They must be from those shithole countries. Oh, but we know where the shithole is. Beneath the nose and above the chin of the President of the United States of America. Every morning at 5:30, he gets up to excrete the feces of his moral depravity into a nation he has turned into his psychic commode. Wake up.
Wake up.
Welcome to Vote for Justice.
Great beginning. I love the beginning.
An evening of activists and artists. And before we start our evening, let's give another hand to those impacted by this system that has, since its very inception, targeted marginalized communities. We see you, we hear you, we are you. Give it up for all of you.
Well, I know for me, as a black woman in America, criminal justice has touched many parts of my life. I was a little girl from Jamaica, Queens, South Ozone Park. Hey, we got some Queens people in the house.
Fucking for Jamaica.
Fucking for Jamaica. And my dad was a police officer. My mom worked for the Department of Sanitation. So I saw a lot of people get locked up that are still locked up from my neighborhood, unfortunately. So we know what's happening. We are on the stage to make a change tonight.
That's
and
right.
You're sitting in that seat to make a change tonight. So thank you for being here. That's why I'm dedicated to changing it. And I know that it can happen in the voting booth and on the ground, right?
That's right. That's right. I know a lot of people get cynical. They get despaired. What's a vote going to do? You can tell what a vote can do. Because it's not just for the president. Look at Larry Krasner, who got elected in Philadelphia in the voting process. And look what happened when we didn't vote a particular way. Now we got HUD. Didn't start with Ye. Got HUD, right? And we know what we got into the education department. That's your vote too. It's not just for who's supposed to be ostensibly in charge. It's at every level. So voting is critical. Voting matters. Voting is not only a right, but a responsibility of our citizens. And as a black man, I've seen it. I got a brother who's been in the Stone Hotel, prison for 29 years. My younger brother. They have people who have on tape murdered somebody and got out in 10. This man has been in prison in Michigan for that long. And it's not just the person who's impacted directly. It's the mother, it's the father, it's the collect calls, it's the children, it's those who are separated, it's those who have to make treks of 3 and 4 and 5 hours. It's all of the financial and economic exigencies that we don't account for. So that's why we are here tonight. This ain't just no theory. This affects us in our bodies.
Yes, it does. Yes, please. America represents less than 5% of the world's population, yet houses more than 20% of its prison population. How do we get here? How is it that the U.S. locks up more people per capita than any other nation? Today, as impacted persons, the formerly incarcerated influencers, policymakers, and activists sit in this space. There are 2.3 million people in U.S. prisons and detention centers.
And while the financial consequences of criminal punishment in this country seem obvious, considering the fact that $80 billion go into this prison system, the human damage is even more difficult to measure. That's what I talked about a bit ago. What has the criminal justice system cost us historically, politically, economically? How has it affected generations, families, and communities? Our humanity. I mean, what? We can't sit in no Starbucks. We can't go golfing. We can't go to the Waffle House and get no chicken and fries. We can't just sit down and be. It's not what we do, it's who we are that seems to be the problem here. Are y'all here? I need some Baptist church up in here.
Can I get an amen?
Lord.
The cost is massive. Tonight, we survey the damage and the reforms that need to happen immediately to stop the destruction. For those here with us today at home, please share your vision for transforming our criminal justice system by using the hashtag #JusticeLooksLike. Use the hashtag #JusticeLooksLike. Together we can create a social media vision board with solutions and ideas that will help us push for change. But first, the dollars.
Dollar.
Can everybody say the dollars?
$10. Cash rules everything around me. Got to get the money. Dollar bill.
Y'all.
What? Get up with it now.
I wish I knew I was any rhymes as you. But first, the dollars. Coming to the stage to discuss the financial costs of the criminal justice system is a major force in the fight to end police violence, co-founder of Campaign Zero, and a member of President Obama's task force on 21st century policing, Brittany Packett.
BP, are you with me? Give it up.
Good evening. What an important time to be having this conversation. There are countless ways that poverty in this country translates into punishment. Poverty and punishment work together in constant synergy, prolonging the shame and oppression it was intended to create for Black and brown people in this nation. A synergy that keeps the scales of oppression balanced. The rich are rewarded, the poor discarded. No other system in this country wholly captures that more than cash bail. A web of fees and fines, profits and gains that feed the beast, flowing right into the $80 billion crown jewel of America, the prison system. $80 billion. And to keep those riches flowing at the monetary cost of taxpayers and the moral cost of our humanity, this country locks up 500,000 people at any given time who are simply awaiting trial. The idea of bail as a form of conditional release has turned into a system that benefits only those who can afford it. Wealth-based, privileged, an unrelenting system that entangles the economically disadvantaged and targets the marginalized. This is done on purpose, y'all. But how much does it really cost? What are the numerical units associated with the numbers game that keeps our prisons full? Let's take this into account. 75% of those behind bars cannot pay their bail. 3/4. 75%. We spend more than $13 billion a year on pretrial detainment. And there's this. If you can pay your bail, you're free. And if not, you're likely paying a 10% premium to a bail bondsman. And considering how many of our economically disadvantaged are locked behind bars, unable to pay that amount, you can almost guarantee that somebody is benefiting from that poverty. To the tune of nearly $2 billion of profit for bail companies, to be exact. This doesn't even include high interest rates, assuming your family bought into an installment plan because they couldn't afford the 10% in the first place. Or the additional fees associated with paying the courts, the public defender, the prosecutor. If you're convicted, well, the fees just continue to grow. If you're never even prosecuted, those fees are non-refundable. But the largest of all these costs, beyond every single dollar, is the human toll. Many of these individuals are innocent. Many will plead guilty just as a means to gain their freedom, lassoed into a record that will follow them forever. Others will be subjected to sexual assault and abuse within the first week of entering those jail cells. Others might die while behind bars. And my God, when I think of Khalif Browder, others might commit suicide. And the longer people are behind bars, the more likely they are to be convicted of that crime, to lose custody of their children, to lose their jobs, to lose the ability to pay down these accrued fees, to lose their very minds, to lose their humanity. We're talking numbers, but the numbers that prove this system even works for greater society simply do not exist. The numbers merely prove to the world at large that we are a nation far less concerned about protecting our citizens and far more concerned about gaining a dollar. We're letting this system impede the lives of whole, worthy, brilliant, resilient communities who contribute so much to this world. And we are letting this system exist on a lie that it was designed for public safety. But who exactly are we saving? Who exactly are we protecting? We are the country whose founding policy architects in theory believed that all people were created equal, but we have found and continue to found that that equality is conditional. If we are to go by the law of the land, then we must recognize what our founding documents say, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. It is time, it is past time to alter the future of criminal justice in this country. It is time to abolish cash bail. Thank you.
Unexecuted sentence of death. My name is Alice Marie Johnson. I'm a 62-year-old mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. In less than 2 weeks, this October 31st, will mark my 21st year of confinement in a federal prison. One of my family members told me one time, and I'll never forget that, they told me they're coming to visit me in prison. It's like it's a grave site. They said they could see the place where my body lay, but they could never take me home again. After my jury trial, I was sentenced to life in prison. Life offered me no opportunity for parole, because there is no parole in the federal system. I had been in management for 10 years. When I lost my job, I struggled financially. I couldn't find a job fast enough to take care of my family. I felt like a failure. I went through a complete panic, and out of desperation, I made one of the worst decisions of my life to make some quick money. I became involved in a drug conspiracy. I missed the birth of grandchildren, being able to be in their lives. I just had a great grandson. I missed that. Both of my parents had passed away. I was not able to be by either of their sides in their final days. That's an ache that I felt that never goes away. I am not a sanctuary to society. One of the things I'm most proud of, I write plays. And the plays that I write have been viewed by literally thousands of women. It is so exciting to find talent in women that they never knew they had. To recognize it and develop it and to show them that you can do this. So I'm very proud of being able to mentor other women and to help them do their time too. When the criteria came out for clemency, I thought for sure, in fact I was certain that I'd met and exceeded all of the criteria. I had 100% clear conduct for the entire time of my entire time in prison. No disciplinary infractions. I'm a true first-time nonviolent offender. Even the prison staff wrote letters about my accomplishments in prison. I had letters from members of Congress, the outside public. Oh my goodness, I had so much support. I was denied again with no explanation given. So it leaves me wondering what more I could have done. The real Miss Alice is a woman who has made a mistake. If I could go back in time and change the choices that I made and make different choices, I would, but I can't. But what I have done is I have not allowed my past to be the sum of who I am. Please wake up, America, and help end this injustice. It's time to stop over-incarcerating your own citizens, because that is what is going on.
Wow. Wow. It is with great honor that I introduce our next presenter. Don't laugh at me. That video threw me off. It's just, you know, I'm so happy to see us in these seats. Y'all don't know how important it is for us to stand together for this. It's so important. Yes, give yourselves a hand. A woman who made history when she took the Senate seat in California. And who continues to be a champion for women and girls affected by the criminal justice system. Recently, she introduced the Pretrial Integrity and Safety Act and to end cash bail and its crippling effects. A woman who once wrote, "For years, we've been offered a false choice on criminal justice policy, a choice that suggests one is either soft on crime or tough on crime. Instead, we should be asking, are we smart on crime?" That's a word. Please welcome none other than Senator Kamala Harris.
I love you more.
Give it up for her again.
Well, I'm so happy to be here this evening, and I just want to thank you, Tichina, and everybody. This is a room full of leaders, and the fact that we have come together this evening, brought together, we got the call from the Justice Roundtable, and we all responded. And it couldn't be a more critical and important time for us to share an evening like this, but be together under one roof, reminded that we are all in this together. And I think we all know that we are at this moment living in what is probably a real serious inflection point in the history of our country. I think of this as being a moment in time similar to a moment in time when my parents met when they were active in the civil rights movement in the 1960s in Berkeley and Oakland, California. And I think this is a moment in time that we all know people are feeling very distrustful of their government, its institutions, and its leaders. And the thing about trust, it's an interesting relationship. The nature of trust is it's a reciprocal relationship. You give and you receive trust. And one of the most ingredients in a relationship of trust is that we speak truth. But it's a funny thing about truth, because it often makes people quite uncomfortable when you speak it. But this is a room of leaders who understand that we will not get to the next place if we don't speak truth, and speak it loudly, and be bold, and march and shout it when we need to, but always with the goal of understanding that we can be better than this. And so I look at these moments in time, understanding and knowing that we have to speak truth when we have a United States Department of Justice led by somebody who is trying to revive the failed war on drugs. I look at this moment in time and know that we all must speak truth when we also look at that same Department of Justice, which is trying to close down pattern and practice investigations and take the teeth out of consent decrees. I look at this as a moment in time when we have an administration that is emphasizing incarceration instead of rehabilitation. And I know that this is a moment in time then that is challenging us to step up and speak out like never before. As they try and roll back the clock, we will be committed not only to stopping them from doing that, but taking ourselves to the next place. And that's what then gives me a sense of great optimism when I look at who is here and know who is here. Because I've been somewhere between a place of realism, speak truth, and optimism. Know we can get there, know we will make a difference. And so I want to just close my comments by saying this. Let us be very clear. You know, it's an interesting thing. Sometimes people say when you're showing what's not working, when you're pointing out what's broken, when we're marching and we're shouting, some people say that invites a question about one's love of country. I reject that notion. In fact, I say there are two definitions of what it means to be a patriot. One definition that suggests you condone the conduct of your country, whatever it does. And then the other that is the kind of patriot, yes, patriot that we are. The kind that will fight each and every day for the ideals of our country. And that's what this is about. And that's what this is about. So as we go forward, our chins will be up, our shoulders back, being very clear, we own that flag. It is our flag. And we're not going to let anyone suggest that this is not about anything other than fighting for the best of who we can be and who we are. And so with that, and just saying that let's all be clear, we are not fighting against something. We are fighting for something. We are fighting for something. So thank you, Justice Roundtable, for bringing us together. And my real purpose here is to introduce my Oakland homegirl, Guapale. Now, Guapale has been a friend, and she has been somebody I have known for years, and you all know her for her talent and her beautiful, beautiful voice. But know that her voice is more than a singing voice. And remember, all the great movements have included artists. All the great movements, and that's what this evening is about too. But Guapale has been out fighting for everything from what we need to do to make sure there is equality and fairness in South Africa, to looking at the criminal justice system here in America, to always being a voice about what our children need and what communities in need should have and deserve in terms of dignity. So with that, I introduce to you a girl from Oakland called Guapale.
Good evening. What a joy and pleasure to be here. And then to have Kamala Harris be the one to bring me out here is a deep honor. I'm joined here with Errol Cooney, my friend and musician. We've been working together for over 15 years in so many different rooms and clubs, and this is special to be here with you tonight. Oh, pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I from the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. My head was made strong by the hands of the Almighty, and will forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help me sing? freedom, 'cause all I've ever had, redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. So won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I've ever had, redemption songs. All I've ever had, these songs of freedom, redemption songs. These songs of freedom, redemption songs, redemption songs. Thank you. I was at the National Museum of History and Culture today in D.C. for the second time. Every time I come to D.C. now, I want to go there. And that redemption song means even more to me tonight after walking through there and kind of reliving some of how so much of the African diaspora made it here to the U.S. and the pain, but also the resistance that has been there all along the way. And this next song is called Stand, and I started writing it years ago when Oscar Grant was murdered by the Oakland police, and it was captured on social media, and then so many of the injustices were captured on social media after that, and I was trying to figure out what can I as one individual do, you know, when people were marching in the streets and I was feeling powerless at the moment, but I was thinking I could just sit and write about it and make a song, and hopefully it'll have some ripple effect, and we all have that. Catch me if you can understand, it's a new day. Life is real, but we still gotta get paid. Let's take it back to the simple things, like love and laughter, not the flash and fame. Stand up to a man, yes, I can take my place. Don't let that chess play fool you. Just put your picture in a frame. It's time to step into this double Dutch game. Just stand up for something. Don't fall back for nothing. If we can't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. Life is passing by and it's not gonna sit right when you witness the truth, but then believe the lies. But I'm a mama, freedom fighter, I'm a queen. And if I don't speak up, then tell me what it means. Justice keeps on fading away. Greed and fear keep on making mistakes. It's police against the citizens, the troops against the youth. In war, the mind is legal. Tell me what we're gonna do. Just stand up for something. Don't fall back for nothing. If we don't stand for something, we'll fall audience. Don't feel like you guys have to be quiet, though. Are you guys out there? Are you feeling good? I always think about, since I was a teenager, being at youth rallies and just feeling like the struggle never ends. But in that, and as crazy as, January of 2017 was with Trump coming into office, Kamala Harris from my hometown became a senator, and it was such a moment of victory. And I think it's important to remember, in the midst of the struggle, we have to celebrate the victories along the way. And we have to hold on to the joyous moments that happen, because the struggle's going to continue no matter what, so keep the energy going. Oh, yeah. It's coming over me. Will you guys clap along with me? I'm getting high, closer to my dream. I'm going higher and higher. I can feel it in my sleep. Sometimes it feels like I'll never go past here. And sometimes it feels like I'm stuck forever and ever. But now, 'cause I'm going higher, closer to my dreams. I'm going higher and higher. And I can almost reach. Sometimes you just have to let it go. Just let it go, let it go. I'm leaving all my fears to just burn and die. I'll just push them all away so I can move on closer to my dreams. And I can feel it all over my being. Just close your eyes and see what you believe. You know the path is long, but we're moving closer to our dreams. Together we'll go higher, closer to my dreams. Yeah, we're going
But he never meant to me straight up racist. The sucker was simple and plain. Hey man, John Wayne. Already I'm hyped cause I'm amped. Most of my heroes don't appear on no stamp. Sample a look back and you see nothing but rednecks and racists for 400 years. Man. Don't worry, Be Happy was a #1 jam. You can slap me right now if I say it again. Please welcome to the stage for a conversation about hip-hop, mass incarceration, and the war on drugs, the hip-hop congressman himself, Congressman Cedric Richmond, Deputy Director of the ACLU's Campaign for Smart Justice, Bill Cobb, and culture writer Christina Coleman.
You acting up.
God bless you, babe. Am I moderating the conversation? Am I moderating the conversation?
You want to?
No. I think you should do it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You need the microphone?
No, I'm okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all so much for coming here tonight. It is such an important night, and I'm so excited to talk about one of my favorite things, which is hip-hop music. So before we start, I just wanted to put an icebreaker out there. We talked about this backstage a bit, but I wanted to talk about your favorite hip-hop moment, song, album, and it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to the subject matter tonight, but just because we love hip-hop.
Yeah, my favorite lyric, favorite MC is Rakim, Follow the Leader. It just talks about his artistry, his genius, and then there's deep competition in hip-hop, and so this lyric just literally separated him from everybody else until the end of time. He said, what can you say as the earth gets further and further away, planets as small as balls of clay? Let's stray into the Milky Way, far and out of sight, as far as the eye can see, not even a satellite. Now stop, turn around and look, and as you're staring in darkness, your knowledge is took. Soon you're staring, suddenly you see a star, you better follow it, because this the R. That is just mind-blowing, so that's my favorite still.
Wow. So we got two performances, one from Michael Eric Dyson and one from Bill Cobb. So thank you. Thank you so much. And Cedric.
Well, you won't get a performance from me. Dear Mama, the entire song captures it for me, but just think about the one little part when he says, although you were a crack fiend, Mama, you were a black queen, Mama. And I think that speaks so much to me in terms of not only black women, but black people. Although we have our flaws, we're still kings and queens, and we should think of ourselves that way. But, but on a daily basis, it's very hard for me to leave the world of Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and all that good stuff.
All right, I'm going to read something to set this up to explain to the audience tonight why hip-hop has been so important in this movement. Maintaining the tradition of oral history for black and brown communities seeped into mainstream in the 80s and 90s through hip-hop, producing an angsty record of the time that had less to do with rap's adolescent age and more to do with the environments that birthed and cradled our musicians. Hip-hop, it seems, is the only comprehensive record that we have that encapsulates what it meant to live through Nixon and Reagan's war on drugs. The destitution, the death, the incarceration, the destruction of the family unit, the generational trauma, and yes, even the money, cash, and hoes. While many choose to demonize these unconventional historians, and others have a very valid argument about its misogynistic tones, I, as a woman, understand that, subscribing the art to the reason for our own oppression and destruction was a weapon to erase the atrocities done to our communities. Through music, the men and women of hip-hop have created historical context about a time our black world was ravaged by crack and policy fraught with racism, but rich in culture and art. The result is a beautiful and raw story of black resilience. The result was hip-hop. And for you, I want to know, what is the single most impactful piece of art in that realm that represents the war on drugs and mass incarceration?
That's not a softball, but I think about Public Enemy's Night of the Living Bassheads. I think as a kid that was listening to hip hop and was becoming conscious through the listening and then going and study what they were saying, because they were talking deep, they were talking intellectually, they were talking consciously, and nobody had ever spoke to me that way. So to hear about the crack epidemic in New York City through Flavor Flav's lyrics, through Chuck's rhymes, that was the most profound. But I mean, a couple of days ago, Donald Glover put out a piece, This Is America. And while people are put off by what they saw, they're not looking at it through the artistic lens. While you're looking at the middle of the entertainment that's happening, there is death and desolation and destruction happening in the background. And his point was that many times things are happening in the black community that are destroying us, and they are extraordinary. However, arts and culture and entertainment, or they'd rather see us dance. They'd rather have us sing. So that's why he's dancing and singing in front of all of that death and destruction, and people aren't mindful of that. And so it's landing on people as something horrible or something off-putting, but the truth of the matter is that it's hip-hop, and it's telling the story of our country as it relates to mass incarceration, as it relates to how we use social media, as we just ignore the pain and the suffering that these systems of oppression that are resilient continuously cause harm. We're distracted by the music and the dance and the partying, and that's just real, and that's hip-hop.
Yeah. And Representative Richmond?
Well, I was going to try to be politically correct today, and I'm about to fail miserably
It's okay.
at it. But to put it in context, you have to go back to 1988 when Chuck D gives his interview, and they say, well, about rap music, and he says people are only rapping about what they see. It's the news of the hood. Many people say he said it's the CNN of the ghetto, but he didn't. He said it's the news of the hood. So what other song came out in 1988? NWA, F the Police. And most people took it as just a bunch of young black guys sticking their middle finger at the police, and it wasn't. The song is NWA in a courtroom putting the Los Angeles Police Department on trial for police brutality. And in the song, you will say police think they have the authority to kill a minority. So the anger that was there, fast forward to today, no one believed them back then. Even with Rodney King, nobody believed that it was happening on that basis. Fast forward to today, it's on every cell phone, on YouTube, and young African-American males and females are still not getting justice. So I always use that song. So if you want to understand why I'm angry, or why my generation is angry when we see it and it happens, and why people in the streets, because we've been screaming about it since 1988. People don't believe me, and the courts don't hold up justice.
Do you think the artists of that time, we're going back to 88, 87, 88, knew what they were doing, that we would look at this as a historical record? And also, what is their place in the movement to reform criminal justice? Is it their responsibility, or can they create art for art's sake?
They can create art for art's sake, but some of them who have been successful, and some of them who, lyrics were not the most uplifting, I think they have a responsibility to let people know it's art. See, the problem is, when I grew up, people tried to emulate what they saw in those videos and in the TV. And I'm not saying that it's the artist's fault that we didn't know that it was make-believe. But at some point, I think you have a responsibility to give back, be woke, and do something. And to the extent that they're doing that now, I applaud them.
Each of us are responsible for what our leadership does and what it doesn't produce. An artist is allowed to be an artist. If an artist wants to be an activist, they are entitled to do that too. I think that each of us have an opportunity to really take a look at what our leadership is producing and focus on that, instead of being critical about what other people are adding to the movement or what they may or not be adding. So if they activists, they activists. If they artists, they're artists. If one day they decide to become conscious and one day they decide to become unconscious, that's on them. I really have to be focused on what I'm doing and what my leadership is producing, and I would hope that everybody else felt the same way.
Yeah. And I think that there is place for growth, and I think we see that with Jay-Z, who has been very vocal about criminal justice reform, and even Meek Mill, whose situation is all over the news, and we're lifting him up because that was a huge miscarriage of justice.
Absolutely.
Where do we see hip-hop in the future of criminal justice reform?
criminal justice reform is becoming really popular, and things like tonight are going to make it even more popular. And as a result of those individuals actually being the people who have suffered as a direct result of mass incarceration in our criminal justice system, you're going to see a great deal more people becoming actively involved in changing policies and practices that are destroying their communities. As their platforms become larger, as their resources become more, we're working with so many celebrities and so many different artists who are now focused on these issues. So I think that we'll see a great deal more people come into the space, but it also depends on how effective we are in changing these things. So right now it's really popular, it's really trendy. We're making it even a little more trendier tonight. So I hope that more people actually get involved into the fight, start making investments in their communities that really have a profound impact on changing the quality of life.
Well, I think you can't talk criminal justice reform, and I like the fact that the attention is there. But a lot of attention we really need to narrow down to prosecutorial discretion. And when we start looking at all of the cases, the thing about our community and our kids and minority kids is that they don't get that prosecutorial discretion. They get overcharged, and they get sent away. And that's the part where I like that it's coming mainstream, because what I hope is that, look, I have a loud voice and I can go endorse and I can get involved in DA's races all around the country. And I hope that other people who are now into it continue to do like other leaders are doing and contributing to make sure that we get conscious district attorneys around this country, because they not only decide when to charge our children, they get to decide when not to charge police officers and others. So let's not, as we talk about it, forget the power of the prosecutor, and that we're starting to see, because prosecutors take great joy in getting the right scalp on their wall. And just so too often the right scalp looks like me, whether he plays football, basketball, baseball, or a politician.
Yes, yes. And I wanted to end on a positive note. I know we got to go and get off the stage, but we've been asking folks at home and folks in this room to use the hashtag Justice Looks Like. And I wanted to ask you both, what does justice look like?
Justice looks like when anyone who's impacted by an incident, when they all have an equal opportunity to heal. That's whether or not a person perpetrates a crime, that's a person who's a survivor of crime, and that's the community in which that incident happens. And until all parties have an equal opportunity for healing, we're never going to be a just society.
Yes.
Well, for me, it's hard. In this country, I've never seen justice in terms of real equal justice.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to continue fighting to where, you know, zip code, area code, race doesn't matter. And far too often in this country, it does. And I think that we just have to keep fighting until that doesn't matter. We can't pretend we're post-racial. We have to be post-racial. And so it's hard to describe something that you have not seen equal justice in this country.
Yes, yes. Give it up. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Failing to signal a lane change. Riding in your girlfriend's car with a child in the back.
Running to the bathroom in your own apartment.
Selling cigarettes outside of a corner store.
Riding a commuter train.
Walking home with a friend.
Making eye contact.
Selling CDs outside of a supermarket.
Wearing a hoodie.
Walking away from police.
Walking toward police.
Missing a front license plate.
Holding a fake gun in the park in Ohio.
Driving with a broken brake light.
Sitting in your car before your bachelor party.
Walking up the stairwell of your apartment building.
Calling for help after an accident.
Holding a fake gun in Virginia.
On the way to Bible study.
Holding a fake gun in Walmart.
Laughing.
Holding a wallet.
For attending a birthday party.
Doing absolutely nothing.
Not servile enough.
Go to weareheremovement.com to tell President Obama and Congress that the time for change is now. We demand radical transformation to heal a long history of systemic racism so that all Americans have the equal right to live and to pursue happiness.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's going on up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, would you help me please? Oh, help me please. But he winds up knocking me down on my knees. Oh, it's been times that I thought I wouldn't last too long, but now I know that I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Hang on to the world as it spins around. Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last.
Keep your self-respect, your woman and manly pride. Get yourself in gear. Keep your stride. Never mind your fears. But the days will soon be here. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Keep on walking tall. Hold your head up high. True story, when I was walking to school when I was 8 years old, one of the county drunks saw me walking with my head down and told me, boy, keep your head up. And I've been walking with my head up ever since. Keep on walking tall. Hold your head up high. Lay your dreams right up to the sky. Sing your greatest song. And you keep going, going on. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Hey, just wait and see. Someday we'll all be free. And it won't be long. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Thank you.
What y'all know about that? I ain't mad at mumble rap, but dang. It's good to know what you're saying. Know what I'm saying? No, we really don't. Okay, I get it. And I ain't dogging them. Standing by the speaker. Suddenly I had a fever. Was it me or either summer madness? Articulate the pain, the anxiety. That's why you got Sam Cooke, 34 years old when he rose up out of here in L.A. But the son of a preacher, Pentecostal in Chicago, Donnie Hathaway, out of here at what, 33? Washington, D.C., Howard University, out of St. Louis, youngest gospel singer in the world. Now back to the program as printed. Y'all out there? I'm going to need some Pentecostal Baptist kind of amen. All right. Change is definitely coming. As we know, the effects of the prison system can be lasting, deleterious, destructive, and permanent. But from it, there is also growth and the beauty of resilience. Coming to the stage, we have a brother who at the age of 16 was charged as an adult and spent more than 8 years in prison. One of the more than 600,000 people that come home from state and federal prisons yearly, this man has dedicated his life to making sure we all know what justice looks like. And I know one thing, justice is what love sounds like when it speaks in public. Now, an award-winning poet, artist, and author, he turned that experience into art to move the masses. Please welcome Reginald Dwayne Betts.
I may never get a chance to do something like this again. So the first thing I'll say is this performance is really premised on the fact that I know more people who will not get out of prison than I can name at this moment. I know more people who have been sentenced to life in prison as 15 and 16-year-olds than should be possible in a country like the United States of America. And I'm pleased that everybody in this room cares about the issue now, but I also know when I got incarcerated in 1996 and I faced a life sentence, I could not find somebody to hear my voice. What we know of horses. And when my brother says Swan Road is the world, he ignores boarded vacants, broken windows, displaces shattered glass. He tells me, believe the world is a tenement house, a pocket full of stones, a world of ghosts, and what's left of ash and smoke after each inhale. I visit now that a prison cell holds this world. Dead men circle every block we know. Thread this world with quotes from Psalms. The sorrows of death embrace me. Some trust in chariots and some in horses. They embrace metaphor, disbelieve gravity, breathe in a haunted world. And what of my brother? Running these streets, he was a horse, graceful, destined to be broken. Why admire horses? Why compare everything fast and beautiful to horses? My daddy's generation had a saying for men lost in the world. It was true of my uncle, my cousin, men strung out on horse, chasing a dragon, shivering with the memory of that stallion gone postal in their veins, called them lost in place with cities buried inside them, horses inside them stampeding. My brother put his faith in horse, and there's no map to find him now. He tells me he inhales the funk of men doing life in prison, and he knows he is in hell, that he has dug his grave amongst bricks that embrace him. He, exile, with only rusted iron and bricks bracing his 200 pounds. Who admits this cage embraces him? History is written on the back of the horse broken by the world. We all in prison now. I stare at this man my kin ruined by embracing night. Call this place a horse collar and watch how it cuts into skin, how the leather embraces all of our necks. Even as a visitor behind plate glass, I brace myself for cuffs. This ain't Swan Road. This burden placed on me, these memories of courtrooms and places where the bodies were found. And still, I want to stop and embrace my brother, to hold him close and pause to inhale the scent of prison, to tell him what I smell, what I inhale is still the body of a man. How can a man inhale so much violence and not change? I light my Newport, inhale, think on how his voice has changed. My man now, a feral horse wearing kick chains, unable to sleep, always on guard, inhaling the air for prey as if he is still the predator, as if he can inhale death and keep on living. Prison, the elephant in our world. I imagine the other men here in a world filled with a casket's aftermath. How much grief can you inhale? My brother tells me he prays at night. He wants to leave this place, but we know his wild hours placed him in this mural of blood. His hunger placed him in C Block, cell 21. It suffocates and nothing replaces time. You okay in here, I ask? But he's in a place only he knows. When he walks away, he embraces the kind of rage I fear. A man was killed near him, placed on a gurney and rushed down a sidewalk, dead in a place where no one gives a fuck if you're breathing. To be a horse galloping away is what I want for him. He wants horse trundling through his scarred veins. Prison has taken the place of our freedom, even in his dreams. And I know this is not a world where none is lonely. And I know he is lost to the world. And I know he believes this. I shut my eyes and all the world is dead. And yet there is still a strip, a place that he believes is the world. Swan Road, where he can inhale and be free. Sometimes his cuffs are on my wrists, and I embrace the way they cut. And I'm the one domesticated, a broken horse. Thank you.
Called me up to the front of the classroom, and the officer handcuffed me, walked me down the hall, and it was humiliating, very embarrassing.
Patrice Cullors was just 12 years old when she was arrested by police in her middle school.
I completely felt like anything I did was up for scrutiny and up for criminalization.
What happened to Cullors is reflective of a much bigger problem within our educational system in regards to students of color being criminalized within their own schools. This issue is called the school-to-prison pipeline.
Yo, bro, he's not even resisting. Let him go, dog. He's not even resisting.
When it comes to disciplinary action, schools treat black children jarringly different than how they treat white children. As a result, many children of color can end up in the criminal justice system at a very young age. And for older high school students, criminalization and arrests can continue into adulthood.
Black kids and white kids, if they do the same behavior, the black kid gets more punishment, worse punishment, more often they get punished for the same activities.
Cullors was one of these young children. She talked about her experience in the best-selling book, When They Call You a Terrorist.
Policing and criminalization isn't just the police on campus, which is a huge part of it, but it's the setup in which a campus feels like a prison environment.
So, just how bad is this problem? Let's start with this. According to the most recent and available data, during the 2013 to 2014 school year, black students were 25% of the 143,866 students referred to law enforcement. That's a clear disparity when you consider black students were only 15% of the public school population that year. Also, black girls in particular are nearly 5 times more likely to be given out-of-school suspensions and nearly 4 times more likely to get arrested in school than white girls.
Black girls are characterized as having an attitude. The disparities happen because there is racism baked into the system.
To take it a step further, the school-to-prison pipeline may have even played a role in the story of Trayvon Martin. Trayvon had reportedly been suspended from his Miami high school for alleged possession of marijuana. His parents sent him to Sanford, Florida to serve out his suspension while under supervision. That's where he was killed by George Zimmerman. That begs the question, if Trayvon's school had found another way to discipline him, would he have ever come in contact with Zimmerman? Trayvon's death and Zimmerman's acquittal motivated Cullors and others to create the Black Lives Matter movement. In order to end the cycle, advocates have proposed restorative justice programs that build relationships between staff and students and that bring in more counselors instead of police.
There is a culture clash between the school environment and what police officers do. And so they are in a school environment looking for criminal infractions.
Cullors says removing police from schools is only the first step in disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline. Ultimately, she says, it's about empowering all communities to determine what best serves their children.
I think people need to think about what kind of education are we trying to provide children.
Crazy, isn't it? Crazy, isn't it? I literally just told my daughter the other day, I'm raising a 14-year-old, pray for me. And I told her I'm afraid of her even having any kind of argument or anything in school. Why are we here? Why has it come to that point where you can't even have a discrepancy with somebody? You're afraid your child will go to jail from school. We're at a horrible place, people, but we're going to make a change. There are an estimated 2.7 million children in the nation that currently have an incarcerated parent. At least 10 million children have experienced the trauma of parental incarceration at some point in their lives. We know that Black and Latino children are disproportionately affected. And as a Black mother, knowing that children need parents to thrive in this world, that statistic disgusts me. Here to discuss the trauma families experience at the hands of the criminal justice system are Emmy Award nominee and a very long-time friend of mine, Michael K. Williams, and activist Dominic DuPont, and the brilliant Sean King. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello. It's good to see you all. Part of what we hope to do in our few moments together and in the next segment that you'll see is to move from statistics to human beings. And when we talk about how many people are incarcerated, we often lose the names and the faces and the stories. And so we have here a family, and Michael and Dominic are family. And Michael, you have now a brilliant documentary series that's telling the stories, the human stories of mass incarceration, particularly the effect it has on children. And Dominic is your nephew. Now, I know people are doing the math in their mind, but black don't crack and all of the other stuff. So it's like all, but tell us some about your documentary, and then Dominic, there are a couple questions that I have for you in our moments together. Tell us what you're doing in your series.
Well, the documentary, it started out as just me wanting to find answers. Michael Skolnick, who I consider a mentor of mine, he brought me to the White House, and we sat down with then President Obama and a few other people in the room, about 30 people in the room, and the topic was criminal justice reform. So there were two things happening. One, I was freaking out that I finally made it to the White House. Right, and then two, I was like, well, what the heck do they want with me? I started like tweaking. So Mike was like, Mike, just calm down, you know, people closest to the problem are usually the ones closest to the solution. And my light bulb went off when he said that. So I came back home and I was literally foaming at the mouth. You know, this is right after me having done Black Market with Michael K. Williams. This is right after coming up the heels of The Night Of and doing press for both of those shows. I just kept finding myself in these conversations about the criminal justice system. I'm like, oh, wow, you know, how am I here? So when at the White House, just like, you know, I was like, all my bells were ringing off. So I went to my producers at Viceland, and I was like, you know, guys, I think we have something here. I have something here, my family and my friends. You know, I sat down, I said, you know, Mike, you've never been to prison, true, but I have been visiting friends and family members in the system since I was 17 years old. My first visit was on Rikers Island, 17 years old. And I've been visiting ever since, still making visits, you know, and, you know, it was like, whoa. So I took it to the producers. I said, this is my family, these are my friends. What do we have here? There's something here. And they started to draw this common thread where, wait a minute, Mike, they all did their crimes as adolescents. So the first thing I recognized was that this is a country that we criminalize adolescent behavior. You know, Dominic made a very bad decision. He brought an illegal firearm to an already lit situation, volatile situation. He was protecting his twin brother over an altercation over a girl. Teenage boys fighting over a girl. Sound familiar? Right? It's typical. That's typical adolescent boy behavior. The only difference between one neighborhood to the neighborhood that we grew up in is that Dominic had way too much access to illegal firearms to make that dumb decision. And that's what I started to look back and say, wait a minute, this is strategically planned. They put things in place for us to trip us up, and I started to look at it differently.
Right.
And that's how the racial system got born.
Dominic, one of the things I asked you just a moment ago, because I saw it in a clip, you know, I asked you, how long were you incarcerated? Let me ask you again, how long were you incarcerated?
Thanks. So I was incarcerated 20 years, 7 months, and 18 days. Yeah.
I think it's powerful that you frame it that way because each day mattered. And just backstage, you know, you and I both, all three of us live in Brooklyn. And, you know, I asked you if your family lived in Brooklyn, and one of the things that you said that stung, you told me about some of your family members who passed away when you were locked up. Who passed away?
True. So I had been outside of a prison twice in all the years that I had been incarcerated, and they were both for funeral visits. So in 2010, my grandmother passed away, and in 2014, my mother passed away. So I had an opportunity to go down there for 1 hour, nothing more, in handcuffs and shackles, more restraints than animals have on, to pay my respects. And that is still something that is very difficult for me to process.
Part of the reason I asked you that is we're not talking enough about the human, emotional toll that the time not only took on you, but your family, your friends, and your network.
The community.
Yeah, the entire community. Michael, you had a point where you asked this young boy, you all traveled to this school in Newark.
Yes, sir.
And you met this young boy, I think you maybe say he was 11 years old.
Yes, Michael.
And you were just talking about the effects of incarceration, and you said 95% of the children in that school had an incarcerated family member or parent. 95% of the children.
95.
And when he started opening up to you, what did he tell you?
Well, the abuse that he had encountered at 11 years old was paramount. His biological father physically beat him so much and bruised him so much that he had to constantly keep moving because DYFS would start to get suspicious naturally, or teachers would threaten to call DYFS, so they would just pack up and move and take these boys to the school. Everyone that he gravitated to for stability as a child would do ended up in the system, either for selling drugs or using, which left him then, and then I think there was death. So everything led him back to his father's care, who was physically beating the crap out of him. And that was his life at 11 years old. So he drops all of this on me in just a random conversation. That when you watch this doc, there's no do-overs, there's no rehearsed conversations. What you see is what actually happened as the first response to a first asked question. And after he had told me all the sadness in his life, I tried to, he tells me he wants to be the first one to not go to prison in his life, in his family. 11-year-old boy says, I want to be the first one.
Both his parents have been
Everyone,
incarcerated.
prison,
Brothers, uncles, aunts,
everybody has gone through the system for either using drugs or selling. And he wanted to be the first to not go to prison. So after he tells me this, I try to lighten the room up. And I ask him, I said, well,
you're holding back the tears.
Massive tears. Yeah, I'm fighting. I'm grappling.
So you try to lighten it up.
I mean, I'm talking to a dark-skinned a boy named Michael with a scar in his face. Come on.
You see a reflection of yourself.
It was a lot going on, right? So I'm really trying to keep it together. So I asked the kid, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Pointing to the future. And he looks at me and says, I want to work for DYFS. So
Which is what for the audience?
DYFS is in New Jersey. That's the I don't know. It's an acronym for the system that takes care of kids, Department of Youth Services, or something like DYFS. It's like
because he saw them as the regulators and the protectors.
Yes, exactly. And he said he knew at 11 years old, I want to use my past to be a blessing in someone else's life. I know what it is to go through this system. I know what it is to have to be put in this system. So I want to give my life to helping kids like me. And he knew to tell me that at 11 years old. Man, did I cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that broke me down.
We have to go, but I asked both of you something, and I think it's probably the most important thing that we'll say. In leaving here, and there are people watching online all over the world, people want to know, okay, I'm bothered, I'm frustrated, I'm angry about injustice and mass incarceration. People want to know what they can do about it. And you all are both positioning your entire lives to be change agents. Dominic, what are you doing? And Michael, share some of what you're doing as well, and we'll close on that.
Thank you. It's a great question. Action. That's what we're doing. We're tired of the talking. We're tired of having a conversation. The problems that need to be addressed are going to take action. And that means those of you who are in the room sitting in and listening around the world need to know that it's time to move. Now.
Right. And Michael, share some things that you're doing right now as well to just to play your part in changing this system and making it better.
For me, you know, it's about mentorship. I think we need to stop waiting for people to rebuild our community. I think we have enough resources and enough love. That's the main thing, enough love and enough of understanding of spirituality and love of God that I think we have enough resources to start getting back at our kids. And I mean, we're all at different levels in our lives and different responsibilities and things. We got issues going on. We all got things going on in our life. Lord knows, you know, right now I'm dealing with some mental illness in my personal life. One of my family members right now, and it's serious. But just one, we can take one day out of the week and go to a local public school and get a kid and just spend one day out the week with this kid. You'd be surprised what that will do to that young person's life. So mentorship and village mentality.
Yeah,
that's what I'm about.
Definitely. And I just want to say that I think this is important. Michael's actively involved in developing a foundation called MKW, Making Kids Win. It's a non-for-profit. You need to stay tuned for what's next.
Yeah. You all put your hands together for Michael and Dominic. Now, up next, you're going to meet another family who are experiencing a completely different side of the criminal justice system. You may have seen I wrote a series about a young man named Pedro Hernandez. And Pedro's mother and brother are here. And a wonderful, brilliant woman, Carmen Perez, one of the co-founders of the Women's March, who also is just a lifelong juvenile justice advocate and a brilliant organizer, is going to talk with them about the effects of corruption in the criminal justice system with both police and prosecutors. So put your hands together for them, and you'll see a brilliant clip from the documentary next. Thank you all.
For my nephew Dominic, it took one fatal mistake as a teenager to be sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Let's talk about that one moment in your life. Could you or would you have handled the situation differently?
I've often thought about this whole situation, sometimes until exhaustion. But I also think that we don't have to be defined by that one worst moment in our life.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's what this is about.
While behind the prison walls, Dominic has decided to pay it forward by counseling and mentoring the other men there. He leads a group called Exodus, where he encourages them to do the work on the inside so they can make a healthy and successful transition. Because of Dom's resolve and his resemblance to the fighter, they lovingly call him Tyson.
If it wasn't for Tyson, I wouldn't be who I aspire to be, who I am now. I love because of these men.
Okay. Peace. Part of this process is to remember what we've done. Too many children, too many grandchildren have been affected by our conduct.
After more than 20 years of pristine records and giving back behind bars, my nephew Dominic was granted clemency for the remainder of his sentence.
My nephew. All right, thank you. It's beautiful, man. I'm ready. This is what I've been preparing for 20 years, 7 months, 18 days. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to make an impact in the community in a very, very positive way.
I stand there with you, bro.
Hello, everyone. I know tonight's been a very heavy topic, and I'm just really grateful to be here with Louis and Jessica. When I think about the impact that incarceration has on families, I think about my own personal story of being 14 years old and learning how to navigate the system, but also how to transfer money from a bank account to a bail bondman to help my brother get out. And so I've dedicated 23 years of my life working on system accountability, police accountability, as well as I went from providing alternatives to incarceration for young people in the juvenile justice system to actually entering the system as a probation officer to work within the system. And as I understand, oftentimes we could get caught up in a system, but I am proud to say that none of the young people that were on my caseload ever had gotten sentenced to any type of incarceration. If anything, I was able to refer them back to a community-based organization or to a program, a treatment program. I lead an organization called the Gathering for Justice and Justice League NYC. The Gathering was founded in 2005 by Harry Belafonte. And the work that we do has led me to actually meet Jessica and Pedro. We were able to support in their campaign called Justice for Pedro. And I just also want to give a shout out to Layla and Roy, who are also in the audience, who were part of that campaign. We were able, through kind of the relationship that we have with Sean King, we were able to bring about 50 organizations and individuals together to build a coalition to support the family. And so I know one of the things that we constantly talk about is not only bail reform, but it's also the collateral consequences. Not only am I impacted by my brother, but I also have a cousin, another family member that's facing 4 life sentences at Pelican Bay. My partner, who we are to have a child in a couple of months, won't be able to do certain things because of his felony conviction. He won't be able to volunteer at my child's school. He won't ever be able to get on a bus during a field trip, ever take my child to another country like Canada or Australia to see kangaroos. And what I've recently learned is that we would never be able to adopt something that I've always wanted. And so I think about not only bail reform and the system that we have to transform, but I also think about the 44,000 collateral consequences that we have because of these convictions. And so I would love for you to just kind of talk about the impact that all this had on you. And when we met, you had already been organizing and talking about the situation with Pedro for about 1.5 years. But it's so nice to be on stage with you. And so I just kind of want to start with that. I know that you were personally impacted. You had a brother that was also in the system, and that was your introduction to the system. And then you studied criminal justice. But never imagined having a son, actually 2 sons impacted by the system.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Jessica Perez. I was first impacted when I was 18 years old. My youngest brother, he was 15, 16 at a time, got put away in Rikers Island for a crime he didn't commit. While my brother was pending trial, suffered many things in Rikers Island. I saw my mother visiting him day after day. In the process of my brother being incarcerated, my mother suffered a heart attack. She ended up in the hospital with an open heart surgery. My brother didn't have an option but to take a plea so my mother could start visiting Rikers Island. So that was my first impact with the justice system. But as a mother, years later, I have my older son being impacted by the justice system. He was strong enough to overcome the situations. But when I saw my 16-year-old being targeted by police over and over, arrested for things he didn't commit, and me as a mother feeling empowered, I couldn't do nothing about it. I knew I had to do something about it. I didn't want to end up like my mother, so I didn't have an option. I started getting all the help, hiring private investigators to help me prove my son's innocent. In the process of that, Many news became involved because there was police corruption involved in his case. His case got all the channels from New York City alerted of district attorney misconduct. So during that process, good activists tried to reach me. But due that my son's name is Hernandez, they were looking for me under Jessica Hernandez. I was lucky enough to meet Leila Martinez, Roy Waterman, somebody by the name Supreme, who also alerted Sean King about my son's story. When Sean King exposed the story in the Daily News, it took 3 days for the RFK to come into place. My son wasn't only sent to Rikers while being innocent, but my son also was a victim of the bail system we currently are suffering in New York City and in New York State. My son's bail was $250,000 for a case that it was just reckless endangerment with a weapon that they never recovered, and once again, it wasn't him. At that moment, I fought like any mother would do. I put in appeals, and after all that, my money wasn't worth. Me being as a mother wasn't good enough for them to lower the bail to a reasonable bail so I could bail my son out. At that moment, the RFK came into place, walked into court with a $250,000 check, and they consented to lowering that bail to $100,000. So I'm here sharing this story today. It's just part of a big story, because I believe that if people in power come into place, we can make a difference. When activists came into my rescue and we put together, like I call them, my angels sent from above, we put together the rally for Pedro, case was dismissed. The time is over, right? I just want to say thank you for having us here, and thank you to everybody.
And so the case was dismissed, and I know recently Pedro was pulled over, and that was a story that you shared with me, Louis, how, again, these convictions that follow you outside of cases being closed or even having an expungement. How did that play out?
So basically, he's a legal driver. He has a driver's license. He was pulled over recently, and for being Pedro Hernandez, the person who championed for his civil rights and stood up for his grounds while being incarcerated, the person that faced all odds and went on to graduate in Rikers Island because he was prevented from receiving his education as any other child should receive their education, how I'm receiving my education, how the rest of my siblings got to receive their education. For being Pedro, he was pulled over. There was no reason for the stop, and he was arrested for a warrant. My brother was released from Rikers Island in July of 2017. We're in 2018, and it's been a few months since he was in Rikers Island. The traumatic experience that he had in Rikers, no one should ever have to go through. And I feel like continuously, just because he has that arrest record, even though every case that he's been arrested for has been dismissed and sealed, that's still going to follow him for his whole life. And I feel as though that's something that, as activists, as politicians, as criminal justice reform, people sitting in this room, we should work against to have reformed and fixed, because that's always going to follow him for the rest of his life. No matter what he goes on to be in life, he's always going to have that arrest record. And every time a police officer stops him and that arrest record comes up, they look at him as the criminal that he's not, which is not reasonable at all. And I feel as though things like that is what impact marginalized communities and communities of color, especially in the Bronx, South Bronx, where I live in New York City. And through the experience with my brother, I was impacted so strongly that it led me to activate myself with activists like Kerry Kennedy, Carmen Perez, Sean King, who was here just on the panel prior to us. They've ignited me to, well, they have ignited my activism in the community now. So now I'm working with Carmen Perez, and I'm a member of Justice League NYC. And I continue to do the work that I feel many are not doing. And I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to listen to the advice of my elders. And I'm going to continue to work against what keeps minority communities, Latinos, blacks, and people of color suppressed. And yeah.
So our time is up, but we want to certainly thank you and just kind of remind you that there are 2/3 people in jail that are not convicted of a crime. That's 16,000 innocent people in New York. And so you said that we were your angels, and I just know that these are champions for change, and they are courageous to go out there and fight for their family members. And so when we think about incarceration, we need to think about it through a systemic, a holistic approach, and also work with family members that are impacted by this issue. So let's give another round of applause for our guest here, and thank you so much.
All right. So it is with great pleasure that I announce the first award of tonight's program, which honors a man who understood that true impact could happen at the intersection of art and activism. Pioneering comedian Dick Gregory turned our pain into laughter. He represented the resilience of Black America in the face of systemic racism. And in the process, he forced America to take a good look at itself, the hypocrisy, the dark history, and even the strides to rectify the past. Dedicating himself to a range of social issues that impacted marginalized communities, Gregory never recoiled at putting himself on the front lines, whether that was through protests, fasting, striking, and yes, even running for office. Gregory answered a higher call to be both an artist and an agent for social change. And through it all, he never ever lost that joy. Here to accept the Legacy Justice Award on behalf of her father, please welcome my friend, the phenomenal Ayanna Gregory.
Make some noise if you love Dick Gregory. So, before I share this song, I just want to say that I just want to say thank you, because there's some people in this room that helped to take care of my father in his travels. My father survived 3 assassination attempts, and he lived out his full life and transitioned at 84, almost 85 years old, when he was good and ready. The song that I'm going to share with you is a theme song to a play that I wrote called Daughter of the Struggle. And I've been traveling the country doing this particular play, and it is such a beautiful opportunity for me to keep my father close to me and to celebrate him and for him to come through me. And the first time that my father saw the play, and I'm so grateful he saw it while he was still here in the flesh, he cried and he said that Malcolm, Medgar, and Martin never got the opportunity to hear their children talk about them. And I didn't recognize how significant that was until it happened. And so, without further ado, I'd like to present to you my love song to my father, entitled Ballad for My Father. Yeah. 1932, somehow Mama knew God had a plan for you. With the light around your head, some tried to hurt you, but you made them laugh instead. Funny man, superstar, change of plans, the movement called 10 kids and a wife, but human rights became your life. Like all the other universal pearls, Daddy, you belong to the world. Golden heart, brilliant mind, so ahead of your time. Black man with the keys in your hands, oh, you opened up the way for a new day. As a little girl, I didn't know what you meant to this world. If I had a dime for every time somebody told me that you saved their life and changed their minds, you planted seeds so long ago deep in me, so I would grow into a flower who loves herself. Dad, I had to tell you myself. So proud of what you stand for. All these years that you've endured. Golden heart, brilliant mind, so ahead of your time. Black man with the keys in your hands, oh, you opened up the way for a new day. The original cool, 'cause y'all know my daddy was cool. Always broke the rules with the courage to tell the truth. He brought the rhythm to heal our blues. Black man with the keys in your hands, oh, you opened up the way for a new day. Let me tell you something. From hunger strikes to war on drugs, taking on the corporate thugs, you went to jail 1,000 times, exposing white supremacy crimes. From human rights to eating right, led the world to the light. A universal God force. Information is your power source. Fire starter, innovator, peacekeeper, magic maker, act author, philosopher, comedian, warrior, soul survivor, golden son, freedom fighter, chosen one, living legend, the
coolest, yeah. See, the world still ain't caught up with you, yeah, no, no. Black man with the keys in your hands. Oh, you opened up the way for a new day. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory, till victory is won, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a daughter of the struggle, and I love my daddy. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Beautiful! Gorgeous! Give her another hand. That was amazing. Oh my God. Beautiful. Your father told me off a few times. Wow, that was awesome. Please give her another hand. That was just amazing. Wow. Whew. Well, I hope viewers at home are using the hashtag #JusticeLooksLike. Please use the hashtag #JusticeLooksLike to let us know what they want the future of criminal justice to be in this country. This next segment hits close to home. Women and girls of color are often left unprotected in the system of criminal justice, from the introduction of harsher sentencing to racial biases that lead to severe punishments. This often means they are criminalized at high rates. In fact, their incarceration numbers have skyrocketed over the last 3 decades due to the war on drugs, the school-to-prison pipeline, and other factors. For girls, this starts young. And for women, navigating a system largely built with men in mind, it can be grossly unfair. In a powerful piece that explores how this impacts individuals at various stages of life, please welcome activists Naomi Wadler, Jamira Burley, Kemba Smith, and Judith Brown Dionese, as they represent the stories of countless women and girls who have fallen victim to the system.
I am only a child, but in the eyes of authority, I am a problem. When I talk in class, I get sent to the principal's office. When I ask for help, I get a stern look. When I raise my hand, I get ignored. When I raise my voice, ever so slightly, people around me get nervous. And if I dare to ask why, I get sent home. I'm only a child, and I might not yet understand that my black skin makes me look less innocent to those around me, to my white counterparts. But I do know that it's not fair. I am only a child, but the presence of police officers in my school is a normal thing. I see them come into classrooms. I see them as they drag students out with force. Girls that look like me. I see them as they escort us out of schools. I notice how some of those girls never come back, and nobody cares, and nobody tries to save them. I'm only a child, but children like me who are pushed out of schools through suspensions and expulsions are 8 times more likely to fall victim to the school-to-prison pipeline. And I know that's not fair. I am only a child, and while I am not that child, while this is not my personal experience, I do understand that girls like me deserve to be comforted, to be nurtured, to be protected, to be given a chance to learn and play, to be heard. I am only a child, but my freedom is what justice looks like. My freedom is our future.
I am not an adult yet. I am a minor whose age means I cannot consent, whose age means that I should be required under the law to be protected. I am not yet an adult. But when I stand before a judge to explain that I am a victim of sexual trafficking, I am not heard. When I say that I ran away from my safety, it is an arrestable offense. They do not care that I am a minor. They do not protect me. And when I protect myself, I pay the ultimate price. I am not yet an adult, but I am sentenced like one. Funneled through the system largely designed for men, with no regards to the fact that I am a girl, a minor, a victim. I sit in prison with no consideration for my lack of resources to help me overcome the trauma of sexual assault, of mental health, of abuse, of poverty, with no special consideration to the fact that I was protecting myself, because other systems put in place to protect minors have never been kind to me. I am Jamira Burley, and I am an adult. But as a minor, I was also a victim to our juvenile justice system. I've witnessed as girls like me, girls like Barisha Edwards and Centoya Brown, both numbers who have continued to increase our criminal justice system, both in the juvenile detention system and in the prison system. I know identifying the signs of abuse are critical. I know that the systems are not built to protect them in situations like this. They are not adults, but they deserve to be protected by law. They deserve to be considered. They deserve to be named. And they deserve to grow up outside of the restraints of the pipeline to stereotypes that push them into prisons. This is what my justice looks like.
What was I supposed to do? I knew about the drugs. I knew about the money, but I didn't participate. I only knew. I didn't do the crime, but I wanted to be honest, so I told them. I told them I knew. I wouldn't get in trouble, right? I knew women who did things for their men out of love. They did it out of fear. They did it for their children. They did it out of manipulation. They wanted to be down. But I didn't do it. I just knew. And I got 24 years. And I was 7 months pregnant, a college student, my first nonviolent offense. And the law wanted me to spend more than 2 decades in jail because I knew, not because I participated. For women, drug conspiracy laws are particularly damaging. They impact individuals based on their romantic associations with a partner involved in criminal activity. And they often leave children to the tentacles of trauma. Over 2.7 million children. I'm going to say that again. Over 2.7 million children. I think of my son, who for 6 years was without his mother. I think about women who, due to mandatory sentencing guidelines, are thrown into prison for long periods of time for non-violent crimes. I think about those who don't have national campaigns for clemency on their side. I think about that grave miscarriage of justice that so many people are spending chunks of their lives behind bars for non-violent offenses. And I think about me and my personal story. That woman is me. And the fact that I'm on this stage now is both a blessing and a testimony. But it's also a reminder that we have to do so much more. A reminder that I represent just one person in the 700% increase of incarcerated women over the past 30 years. That is unacceptable. That is not what justice looks like, and it is time for change.
I'm finally free. I paid my dues to society, and I am finally free. I'm even in a reentry program to make sure I stay free. But it's not easy. Life out here is different. I feel lost. Technology is hard. I can't find a job. I'm not in a relationship with a man, so probation officers look at me funny. They tell me to limit my visits to family, even though they are toxic. They say my queer behavior is risky because they don't understand it. They don't approve my housing plans post-reentry because I'm not going home to a boyfriend, a husband. They don't consider that this heteronormative patriarchal way of thinking means queer women aren't actually free. Or that heterosexual women are being forced to re-enter environments with men that got them into the system in the first place. They don't consider the mental toll or the damage that toll takes when it's too much and we resort to addiction and depression. They don't consider what freedom means for a woman who leaves the prison walls. For queer women, for trans women, for all women. We know women are always on the front lines of change. And we often expect women to save the world. Now, it's time for this country to do its part, to uplift, empower, and center our stories and the intersections where we live. Our unique circumstances, our needs, to prioritize our return to society and to take measures that curb recidivism. Women are needed to turn the tide. Women matter in the fight for criminal justice reform. Women are the future. Women are what justice looks like.
Good evening. My name is Desmond Meade, and I am president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, and we're leading an effort in Florida that's going to transform this country.
And I'm Dante Stallworth, CNN contributor, former NFL player, and member of the Players Coalition, made up of former and current NFL players that are trying to, how can I say this? Trying to make a change without the help of the guy sitting in the White House, being a barrier to our work.
So tonight we've talked a lot about the tools of this country's criminal justice system and the way that these tools disenfranchise and oppress. But how does this system compare internationally? Well, there are two often overlooked prongs of oppression that are unique to America's justice system. One that occurs within the walls and the other occurs outside the walls. And it happens once you've paid your debt to society. And those are solitary confinement and voter disenfranchisement.
The link between these two subjects might not seem clear, but when comparing how other countries handle these practices, it becomes more evident that America stands in a lane all its own. While there's no conclusive data that American solitary confinement environments are more harsh than others, studies do show that this nation imposes one of the most punitive regimes of solitary confinement in the world. This is because solitary confinement usually bypasses courts and is administered by prison officials, who can then send an individual away for minor infractions or for nothing at all.
In some cases, that means an individual can spend the majority of their time in solitary confinement. In America, we have created supermax facilities with the sole purpose of locking humans away in a cell for 23 hours a day. After 2 centuries of well-documented reports about the effects of this inhumane punishment, we're still locking people up at a time despite the physical and mental illnesses, the psychotic episodes, the deterioration in health, and even suicides that are associated with this solitary confinement.
And it doesn't take months or years to feel the effects. It takes minutes. We know that one of the ways to confront these conditions and abolish this outdated punishment is in the voting booth. Unfortunately, those impacted by this system can't even vote for change. In this country, citizens lose their right to vote due to felony convictions. And because the 14th Amendment allows states to decide on this matter, there are restrictions at every turn. This creates a hodgepodge of policies that limits a citizen's access to the voting booth.
Citizens never lose the right to vote in only 2 states. And in 4 states, they don't let formerly convicted felons vote at all. 4. That is permanent disenfranchisement of American citizens. But the fact remains that 6.1 million people in this country are disenfranchised due to a felony conviction. Most of those people have already completed all portions of their sentence. Now, while we recognize the historical and racist context of voter disenfranchisement, like a tumor, these policies have now spread and have impacted Americans from all walks of life. Taking away our right to choose is like taking away our right to live and thrive in this country.
Again, America stands alone as one of the only countries that refuses to let formerly incarcerated folks vote. And for people like me, who have been allowed to re-enter society after paying our debts, we need you to vote with both hearts and minds.
And for those of us who can, we must continue to fight for the rights of folks like myself and Dante, along with millions of others across this country, to help them regain the ability or their right to vote. So tonight, we ask each of you to join the fight to let my people vote.
I'm not going to do it all, Michael.
All of it.
I'm not going to do it all.
Every bit of it.
No,
Yes.
no.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow. How
Wow.
powerful were those words? Please give them another hand. Please.
Yeah.
We're all fighting. We're all fighting. If it shows us anything, it's that freedom is expensive, very expensive. It costs a lot in both dollars and humanity.
That's so true. There are so many injustices in this country that feed into the criminal justice system. Here to perform a song that encapsulates that dilemma are the Crossroads, Raheem Devon and Wes Felton.
Woo!
Peace, y'all. How you feeling? Peace, y'all. How y'all feeling? When I say love, you say life. Love. Love. That's what this moment is about right now.
Let's go.
America.
Yes.
America.
America me.
Oh, America, yeah.
America me.
Land of the home, free, listen, picket signs and protest lines, yeah.
America, America.
Violent nights and police lights, well, well.
America, America.
Body bags is filled with youth, yeah.
Living in America.
With no remorse, they bang and shoot, yeah.
They bang, 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 bang.
The global warming, the killer air.
America, America.
The not guilty verdicts, don't the jury care?
America, America.
Religious wars and social woes, well.
Living in America.
They'll sell you dreams, they'll buy your souls. Oh, in America,
Sing
yeah. America, yeah. America,
Yeah, America me.
I shed some tears for thee, listen, yeah. America,
Yes.
America, yeah, yeah.
America me.
Land of the home. And
For our brothers over in Southeast
listen,
struggling.
Trap your house and
Sell your bricks.
Yeah, yeah. So they indict you once your homeboy snitch.
Yeah.
Well, well, well. Some go down and come home next summer. Well, oh. But now these courts is giving football numbers. We say we want to be equal, but we kill our people.
America, America.
They say we lost their way, but we failed our children. Well,
America, America.
but a change is coming. Here's the proof. Yeah, yeah.
In America.
If you need knowledge to sell, here's the truth. Well, well. For a new America, I pledge allegiance
I
to
thank
America.
God I never wanted to be a clone. I idolize Al Capone, or rock a herringbone, or disrespect my mom in and out of her home. Never been a brother ashamed the way I was from. You gotta go out and get it, not wait for it to come. Never been addicted to that coke or that rum. Never took a life with a gun to harm the human for fun. But I got a few gangsters who protect me and my son. You can't get into formation without information. This country's in peril, too many people hating. We think being famous is the same as reparations. We think smoking trees is the same as meditation. Or others are using it as a form of medication. Incarceration is the new black vacation. I'm trying to practice this hope with a whole lot of patience. I wanna feel American pride with lots of cadence. See, we the only people on the planet taught to hate our culture, while others exploit, eat off of it like vultures. Stress on the inside like ulcers. Racist government stretch from DC to Tulsa. Ain't you tired of the madness and the lies? Ain't you tired of the murders and the cries? Meanwhile, Kim trailing in the sky, but y'all don't wanna hear that in your music or your rhymes. How you gonna matter if you think that you better? And cause you got some money that your water's more wetter. Ha ha ha, jokes on you, are you an actor? You got less influence on your kids than the average rapper. Got the nerve to walk around with your chest poked out while your daughter's getting turned out and son's getting smoked out. Man, let's get these votes out so we can get these racist folks out. America, yeah.
America, yeah. America,
yeah.
yeah.
America me.
I shed some tears for thee, listen.
Yeah.
Well,
America.
America,
America me.
land of the home and free, listen. Well, for the land of the free and the
Thank you very much. My name is Wes Felton. This is Raheem Devon. Collectively, we are the Crossroads. Let us not forget that the struggle continues. If I have the power and you got the power, that means we got the power, and that's what? Power to the people. All power to the people. Thank you.
Peace and love.
me some Viola Davis. Action is a small word with huge consequence. But that's why we're here tonight, to take action and cut the enormous cost of the prison system. Significant strides have been made to reform criminal justice, including efforts to end cash bail, reclassify drug crimes, decriminalizing marijuana, and re-examining mandatory sentencing. Organizations and individuals in this room and watching at home have already made significant progress, and you all are sharing your ideas using the hashtag. What does it say? Say it again! That's what I'm talking about. But we have so much more to do, ladies and gentlemen. We have so much more to do. And trust me when I say that voting moves these changes along. Say it along with me. Voting moves these changes along. Welcome to the stage a powerful trio to give us the tools to create a transformational vision for the future where voters prioritize criminal justice reform. Here to talk about it are Deputy National Political Director of the ACLU, Udi Offer, Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Fox, and Philadelphia District Attorney, Larry Krasner.
All right, how's everyone doing? What an incredible program so far. So we're going to switch gears a bit for the next few minutes. We've been talking a lot about the problem of mass incarceration, and we are now going to start digging into the solutions to mass incarceration. And for the next few minutes, we are going to talk about the role of elected officials, and specifically prosecutors, the role that they play in ending mass incarceration. You know, one of the most amazing things about the current movement for criminal justice reform is this kind of new awakening to the role that prosecutors have played in fueling mass incarceration. Americans are literally waking up and actually checking to see who is their elected prosecutor, things they've never really thought about before. They're waking up to the fact that prosecutors hold the key to ending mass incarceration. They're waking up to the fact that prosecutors have incredible discretion in deciding who to charge and who not to charge, what does time in prison and jail look like. And they're waking up to the fact that of the 2,400 or so prosecutors in America today, the vast majority run uncontested. It's just, you know, no one's challenging them. So this kind of awakening is also leading to real transformative change. And all across America today, voters are electing reformers. They're creating changes in prosecutorial offices from the outside and from the inside. At the ACLU Campaign for Smart Justice, which I direct, in 2018 alone, we are looking at 14 states where we're doing massive voter education, mobilization to herald in a new era of prosecutors in America. Prosecutors who prioritize people over prisons. So here we are. And within this world that I live in, you two are celebrities, right? You are superstars. You know, we're so honored to have you here tonight as kind of the leaders of this new wave of prosecutors who are coming into to hold office. So I wanted to hear from you, we want to hear from you, and talk a bit about, you know, the fact that you came in on a reform platform. You know, State Attorney Kim Fox, District Attorney Larry Krasner. You know, and now you're still in your first term. Reflect back a bit and tell us, like, of your time so far, what do you see as the most significant steps that you were able to take to begin reducing mass incarceration? And even more importantly, how are you going to give yourself a grade at the end of your first term?
So first, I think it's really incredible that we're having a conversation with prosecutors around ending mass incarceration. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to do something about it, prosecutors are key. For me, in Chicago, Cook County is Chicago, Illinois. We are the second largest prosecutor's office in the country. I'm the first African American woman to hold this position. And that's significant because when we talk about representation, when we talk about who uses our criminal justice system in the school to prison pipeline and the numbers for girls, I also come from public housing. I have more in common with the people who come into the criminal justice system than the lawyers that I work with. And so that has framed my perspective on how do we talk about the system, how do we talk about the people that we serve. And it has meant things like being open and transparent with our work. So we just released a few months ago 6 years worth of case level data that looks at everything that we do from charging decisions to sentences so that people can see for themselves if there are disparities. And we know there are going to be disparities in the justice system so that we can then tailor and shape our policies to address that. And so some of the things that we've done have been around using our prosecutorial discretion to raise thresholds for retail theft, which in Illinois, the threshold was $300. So someone could be charged with a felony for retail theft. We used our discretion to raise it to $1,000 or 10 prior convictions. We stopped prosecuting cases of people driving on suspended licenses for failure to pay tickets because we realized that was the criminalization of poverty. And things like that we could look at and say, 4 years from now, using the data, were we able to drive down incarceration rates while maintaining public safety? Because that's our goal, is to keep communities safe and thriving. And the policies and practices that had been in place were not aimed towards that goal.
And the jail population in Cook County is down, correct?
The jail population, because we also took on bail reform, and as a prosecutor, taking on bail reform is very different in Cook County. The county jail population has dropped by 40% since 2013.
Krasner?
You know, the bottom line is DA's made the problem. They might want to fix it. You do stupid things for decades and you get stupid results. So what do? You stop trying to charge things that shouldn't be charged, like possession of marijuana. You do exactly what Kim spoke of, which is if you could charge a case as a felony, but you don't have to. You don't charge it as a felony. You divert cases before there are ever charges. And you don't just do it for juveniles, you do it for adults. You bring lower charges where appropriate. You divert cases afterward. In the bail process, you do not ask for cash bail for a whole category of cases that are not so serious, and this is because we have to deal with the Pennsylvania bail laws as they are. You know, in Philadelphia, just in the 120 or so days that our administration has been in there, we have seen one day after another 20-year lows in the prison population because the reductions went from about 6 a day to about 13 a day as a consequence of these policies and other policies, like asking for sentences for negotiated pleas where there does need to be a conviction that are below the sentencing guidelines, like not pursuing mandatory sentences. There are so many different ways that experienced prosecutors can affect these jail populations, and they should be judged on it. If you're going to come in saying you're bringing reform, then you better get some people out of jail. You have to be careful that you're getting the right ones out of jail because Charles Manson might need to be in jail. But you do have to, you got to be judged on the numbers. You got to be judged on your results.
And you've even done something that I haven't seen anyone else do. You've now charged the prosecutors to actually take into account the cost, the fiscal cost of their charging decisions or plea bargaining decisions and so forth.
There's nothing worse than asking a lawyer to do math, but that is in fact what we are doing. We are requiring our prosecutors, when they're asking for a sentence, to figure out how much it costs and to explain to the court why that sentence is appropriate. And we've done that because, if you have someone who's mentally ill who's doing retail theft for the fourth time, you should have to explain to the taxpayer and the court why it is worth $42,000 to put that person in jail for a year for stealing $13 worth of food.
Amazing. So, for us, I'm sure many people in the room today, people are watching, the idea of becoming a prosecutor maybe not be the most enticing thing for someone who wants to be a criminal justice reformer, or at least the way we've historically thought about it. Make the case for why, if you care about ending mass incarceration, you should actually run. Well, first of all, maybe, you should either run to be a prosecutor in your town or work in a prosecutor's office.
Yeah, the prosecutor is the gatekeeper of the criminal justice system. You do not get before a judge unless a prosecutor decides to charge you or not to charge you. And while we need a robust, as you saw Annalise say, we need a robust defense counsel to defend the work that happens, the fact of the matter is we can have a serious impact on not even having people have to go through the criminal justice system that don't belong there by having strong, committed prosecutors who care about the work. And I think it's really important when we talk about diversity, particularly the impact on communities of color and particularly impact on poor communities of color. If we do not have people who come from that perspective, making the discretionary decisions, talking about those cultural competencies, looking at the impact personally, then you end up with people who are not proximate to these issues, making policy that impacts your community. And so to not be a part of the solution, to leave that to someone else and only respond to that, I think does a disservice to your community.
I would just say it's not enough to fight the good fight. You need to win. And if you're going to win, you got to have power. And if you're going to have power, then you're going to have to go to where the power is. And the power is inside the walls of the DA's office. I was a criminal defense lawyer for 30 years, civil rights lawyer for 30 years before I did this, for better or worse. And I'm telling you what you already know. The power is on the inside of that office. You cannot let other people define what a prosecutor is or what a prosecutor's office is. You need to take that back and take it away from people who've been doing the wrong thing for a long time.
Great. So we're now, we're going to end, and we're going to show a video as we walk off the stage to introduce, it's actually a perfect segue from this panel, to introduce a brand new project that's being launched by the ACLU's Campaign for Smart Justice today. And it's called Vote Smart Justice. And everyone should be taking out their phone and logging on to votesmartjustice.org, or as you walk out today, sign up in a booth that we have outside and enter your email address. This is going to be the first of its kind effort in America, where we are going to engage in a massive voter education and voter mobilization effort in up to 3,000 races in 2018, all focused on criminal justice reform. So the centerpiece is this first of its kind website where you get to enter in your zip code and address, and it'll tell you where candidates for Congress, where candidates for governor, and where candidates for state legislature stand on criminal justice reform. We are going to inspire voters to vote for people, not for prisons. And here's a quick intro video to this new effort.
Good evening. I'm U.S. Representative Lacey Clay of Missouri, and I'm proud to witness what justice looks like on this transformative night. Tonight isn't just about criminal justice reform in the abstract. It's not just about who is affected on the peripheral. Tonight is also about honoring and recognizing those who have lent their stories to this evening, those who make it possible to measure the true cost of criminal justice, law, and the prison system in this country. Directly impacted people. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Good evening. We're going to ask you to please hold your applause until we have everyone up on the stage. But this is really important. We do have some tremendous people who have done amazing, amazing work who are formerly incarcerated. And we just please ask you to hold your applause to the end. They're all here. I think they're on the side. Yeah, they're on the side.
So our first Certificate of Excellence honoree tonight is Ali Malik Farrakhan. I'm sorry, Al Malik Farrakhan. Thank you.
Amy Pova of Can Do Foundation. Please come out as we call your name.
Please come to the stage. Anthony Graves. Anthony Ray Hinton. Andrea James.
Angel Solis, Brian Ferguson, Charles Thornton, Courtney Stewart.
Daryl Atkins. Deanna Hoskins. Deborah Rowe. Desmond Meade. Dorsey Nunn. Dr. Divine Pryor.
Elwood Yango Sawyer, Eddie Ellis, Eric Weaver, Eric Wilson, Fareed Mujahid.
James Allen, Jason Hernandez, Kimba Smith, Lamont Carey, Lashonia Thompson L.
Luis Sawyer, Norman Brown, Norris Henderson, Marshall Eddie Conway.
And in honor of our beloved Ambassador of Justice, who's gone too soon, but here with us tonight in spirit, Ramona Brandt.
Roach Brown, Susan Burton, Teresa Hodge, Tina Reynolds.
Topeka Sam, Tracy Syfax, Tyrone Parker, Vivian Nixon, Walter Lomax, and one of my favorite, William Cobb.
And finally, Xavier McElrath Bay. Some of the award recipients are not here. There's others accepting on their behalf. We're moving through the program really fast, so just please give them all a round of applause. Mr. Al Malik Farrakhan.
Apologies, Mr. Farrakhan. And also, Evans Ray. Thank you very much.
Let's give him another round of applause. We're almost done. Y'all good? Anybody need any medical marijuana? You good? All right. He takes you high. We cannot have a conversation about criminal justice reform and justice efforts in this country without mentioning the next honoree, Mr. Harry Belafonte. Deo. He is equal parts icon, legend, activist, artist, and change maker. He believes in a future where criminal justice is not a system that works against marginalized people, where race is not the driving factor for the business model. His life's work provides us with a blueprint on how we can bravely confront the systems of oppression. And that's why we honor him today. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present this award to my friend and my mentor, Mr. Harry Belafonte.
I think the most important work that can be done in America with all the things, all the problems that face and trouble our citizens, criminal justice is at the top of the list. And until we deal with the issues of race in this country and the criminal justice system, we will never be able to conquer our dilemma. I think that this nation was conceived in issues that involve race, the conquering of Native Americans, and ultimately the genocide that was practiced against the indigenous, and then the introduction of slavery and the century that governed this country under the slave banner, and then the subsequent inheritance of slavery, segregation, which haunts us up until this moment. Because beyond the laws that we've tried to apply to eradicate that problem, until we deal squarely with the issue of race, I don't think we will be able to cure any of the other dilemmas that face this nation. And I therefore thank you for recognizing the work that I've attempted to do to help with the fixing of the problem. And all of you who are here gathered, I welcome being a part of your mission.
Is this me? Okay. It's been quite an evening. It has been my distinct honor to be here with you tonight and with this great, brilliant, beautiful, ebony ecstasy unfurled in coffee flesh. This remarkable, intelligent, brilliant, highly gifted woman, Miss Tichina Arnold.
Oh my
gosh. But we take this seriously because this criminal justice is really criminal injustice, and it needs to be reformed, eradicated, and then put in its place must be a system of laws that respect the integrity of our humanity. This is why we must never give up. And even though the fight is difficult, the great Howard Thurman said, we must refuse the temptation to scale down our dreams to the level of the event which is our immediate experience. What we're going through now will not always last, but what will last is what we do for God, for each other, and what we do for the race of people, the human race that we love and adore. It's been my privilege and pleasure, and we must continue to fight for those who have no voice and for those who remained unvoiced because of the refusal of this country to recognize their humanity. That's why you got to get on your job every day to make certain that justice is preserved.
Amen. Michael said it all. Thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of the evening. All right, greetings. My name is Nikichi Taifa, and I'm the founder and convener of the Justice Roundtable Coalition. We have been around for 16 years. The coalition, whose reentry working group was instrumental in the passage of the 2008 Second Chance reentry legislation. The coalition, whose sentencing reform working group helped to usher in the passage of the Fair Sentencing Act, which reduced the disparity between crack and powder cocaine. The coalition, whose commutations and pardons working group pushed hard for bold use of the Obama administration's signature clemency program, and the coalition, which has stood rock steady on the critical importance of sentencing reform. We hope that our newest campaign, Vote for Justice, will help shape and amplify a narrative change in policies that slash mass incarceration, reunite families, and strengthen communities. And as part of our campaign, we will link arts and culture with education and civic engagement to energize the public to individually and collectively imagine what justice looks like and means to them. And remember those visions when they go to the polls in November and beyond. We challenge celebrity, athlete, and policy influencers to help make the vision of justice reform personal and proximate to themselves, to their fan bases, followers, by posting to social media visions of what justice looks like in their lives and inspiring others to do the same. We hope such mass action will help normalize progressive narratives on justice system reform and transformation. We want candidates to be empowered to say no more drug war, no more felony disenfranchisement, no more juvenile life without parole, no more school to prison pipeline, no more money bail system, no more fees and fines, no more collateral consequences, no more warehousing a generation. And we want the community in a nonpartisan fashion to vote for those candidates that lift up justice and vote smart justice.
That's right.
And so with that, I'm honored to introduce our final performer for the evening. We're talking about Grammy-nominated artist John Forte, who is no stranger to the criminal punishment system and the quest for reform. His 14-year mandatory minimum sentence for a federal drug offense was cruel, but unfortunately not unusual. And sentences of 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years in life without parole are more the norm. He served 7 years before receiving commutation in 2008. John Forte was with the Justice Roundtable Coalition 2 years ago at the White House for its historic Life After Clemency convening, where issues of sentencing, prison, and reentry took center stage, and he mesmerized all of us with his music. He has worked with the Fugees, Wyclef Jean, and Herbie Hancock. He's a rapper, he's a producer, he's a classical violinist, he's a family member, and a directly impacted person. What does justice look like? John Forte. Let's bring him on.
Yeah, great job, great job. Great job. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Break a leg, baby. Break a leg. Take your time.
I'll just say this as I plug in and get set up. I hope that it's not lost on anyone, and I say I hope that, knowing that it's not lost on anyone, that there are so many warriors in this room, not in the theoretical sense, but people who are committing their day-to-days to justice. This is the last song that I wrote in federal prison before I came home. But it's not the last song that I'm going to play tonight. It's going to be the first song. It's called The Breaking of a Man.
I know you've seen the breaking of a man. You've taken all you can, as if the house we made was laid across the sand. Oh Lord, penalties for suffering can seem so hard. Dreaming the days when everything's so dark. Tried to walk good, where does that road start? Show.
John, thought exercises sought out to advise and add on. I changed the thinking, used to proudly had on this mobilizing effort. It picks up from where the best of the best came and left it. The treasure of truth, I mix drinks within the booth. They can't be measured with youth. I break leaven with the 7 and let whatever produce my past estrange the light. If change is right, you can say the judge killed me. Then I came to life, a newborn, like a neophyte. Fruitful love from the tree of life. This is the letter I don't need to write. Peace, Elah, bless the stars. If I don't breathe the night, if I don't save you from yourself, maybe the Lord might. What I envision is better, steady, higher living. From this system, though some dudes might be dead already,
I graduated from a school where the minds varied to hold a burden, known to those that only time carries. This cherry blossom, a martial artist, studied the chi, written on gossamer, tutored by philosophers demonstrably. I deconstruct the subpar and put them back together like the monsters be. So how you want it? Obvious or subconsciously? If every man has a price, who sponsors me? We should do more than just drink responsibly. You see, even in the mountains, Lord John was free.
I know you've seen the breaking of a man. You've taken all you can, as if the house we made was laid across the sand. Oh Lord, penalties for suffering can seem so hard. Dreaming the days when everything so dark. Tried to walk good, where does that road start? Show.
As fate would have it, they would have me talking savage like the average among us, and not confined to the youngest. I'm like the magical healer / masterful builder. I know the riddle of steel is in the hands of the wielder. They tried to shatter my leader, do bad to the breather. For living page 27 from the Bhagavad Gita. So when his time stopped, where he lay, read I'd rather be hated for what I am than loved for what I'm not. You can't subtract logic. I put tulips on his grave and waxed philosophic to the words he gave. Read my lips, it's a new day running, and it ain't coming, cause it's here for the taking. This has been years in the making. I spent years in a station waiting to make this entrance. I'm here to free the world, young star. What's your intention?
This is warfare, youngin'. The lightning is flashing now. Tune in and let's see what's happening now. One way or another, it's going down. And I know you've seen the breaking of a man. You've taken all you can, as if the house we made was laid across the sand. Oh Lord, penalties for suffering can seem so hard. Dreaming the days when everything so dark. Tried to walk good, where does that road start? Show.
Thank you. I'm so tempted to talk, but I'll let the music do what it's supposed to do. This is an amalgamation of a couple of tunes. It's for the lovers and the listeners, brothers and sisters, you don't want to miss it. It's for the lovers and the listeners, brothers and sisters, you don't want to miss it. If you need to make adjustments to your antenna, pay him a visit and stay with attention. We are sitting broadcasting, listening, getting it in, and transmitting. It feels good to keep the mirror clean. It's for the lovers and the listeners. I wish you love and any dream you can dream of. Keep it B.I.G., see it through till it do what it does. I took one for the team. Y'all can eat on me. Learn life to turn life and earn life. Act like the star you are, burn bright and come again, that's your birthright. Remember you chose this, you chose life. Remember you know this, suppose you are hearing this right now because you chose to. It's all you, yeah, in that regard, it's all me too. It's for the lovers and the listeners, brothers and sisters, you don't want to miss it. It's for the lovers and the listeners, brothers and sisters, you don't want to miss it.
If you need to make adjustments to your antenna, pay him a visit and stay with the tension. We are sitting broadcasting, listening, getting it in and transmitting. It feels good to keep the mirror clean. Gong-guru gong again. Walk good or move not with none of them. You watch the news, watch men. You see what's in front, we see behind him. So turned up, we tuned in. The center of ourselves when that light moved in. Every cell's clued in. Anandamide wanna ride, scoot in. Receiving's what the vibe has been. Big believing I'm alive again. I'm alive again. I'm alive again. Gong-guru gong again. Gong-guru gong again. Love, serve, remember, may you long last. And be here now, Baba Ram Das. Fly high, reach that disc, eyes open, go deep. Be that fish, transform, don't sleep unless you need that dip. Live without apologizing, be that rich. Get a line, get well, get rhythm. Get used to good living. It's like a lime to a lemon. We've been here before, you just need to remember. It's like a lemon to a lime, it's revealed over time. The signs and the symbols. Gong-guru gong again. Gong-guru gong again. Thank you very much. One more song and that's it. And as that last song said, I do wish you love. I wish you steadiness. I wish you peace of mind. I wish you clarity. I'm a new father. And I was in tears watching Ayanna Gregory's performance, her tribute to her father, Dick Gregory, and I said to her backstage, I said, if I do a smidgen of the work that your father did, and if, I mean, oh my God, like it makes me tear up, right? Just thinking of my daughter actually one day, someday paying tribute, or writing a poem, or painting a picture. And I think that that's, you know, it's like we've asked ourselves, what is justice? What does justice look like? And I think that it's every person's right to be loved and to love in return. Dignity is the fulcrum of humanity. And if we all start with that as an even playing field, man, it's going to be crazy to imagine what the world could look like. This last song is called Shiva. I got to remember how to play it. Lack of leadership, baby. Whoop, let me see here. All right, right. I had to get into it. I'll play it softly, just so you can kind of feel the implied rhythm. Sometimes when you play it quieter, they'll listen more. Lack of leadership, babies holding heaters with every intention to make it hot and keep it there. Light up the night, shorty bent my ear. He said the only time they see us is election year. They neither serve nor protect us here. So why the hell should we think they care? We don't, and on account of we vote, disenfranchised lives still suffer. Yeah, we tough but broke. Inhale the earth, may it bless my throat. And though I grin like it's just a joke, you should know I know. And the duty of a sorry. And the duty of a civilized being is to keep every student enrolled. You can measure the growth till we presume good living. Let's do whatever matters the most. You know what? Life is short, let's do whatever matters the most. So I fell out of love with the pop life. Rappers don't write, rock and roll don't rock right. I'd rather me and mine for the deep digging. I'd rather peace of mind than cheap living. The only reason why I do it is I know no other reason to keep living. You might say the song is religion. You find yours, there's 100 million ways to source. So long as the sun shines and the moon glistens, you don't have to change the world if a few listen. There's a reason these gifts were given. You can either drift on or get driven. You know the laws of inertia and momentum. You feel the resonance in your antenna. Hustler spirit, the go get 'em. You feel that spirit in the room. You think the flow is with 'em. Make the hairs of my arms stand up when my comrades can't. And make the hairs of my arms stand up when my comrades can't. And make the hairs of my arms stand up when my comrades can't. And make the hairs of my arms stand up when my comrades can't. So I fell out of love with the pop life. Rappers don't write, rock and roll don't rock right. I'd rather me a man for the deep digging. I'd rather peace of mind than cheap living. The only reason why I do it is I know no other reason to keep living. You might say this song is religion. You find yours. There's 100 million ways to sauce plus more. God bless you.
Good evening. Before everyone steps away, actually, can I ask everyone just to sit for just 1 second? I'm Gretchen, and I'm with Open Society Foundations. And I can't see you, but I'm going to hold you honest. This is a test. Who here is here, whether in this space or in this movement, because of Nkechi Taifa? Please stand. Please stand. If you have done anything related to making this world of justice work, advance at least one step closer to being what justice should look like because of Nkechi Taifa. Please stand if you've heard about the Justice Roundtable because it was created and made what it is today because of Nkechi Taifa. Let's give a big hand of applause to Nkechi Taifa.
No, it's all about you, everybody. Have a great night. What does justice look like? It looks like all of y'all out there. Love you.